Again, I'm Graham Canals. I'm the executive director of CSAC, and typically for our courses, we would have our Dean Bill Shiat, but as many of you know, he unexpectedly passed a few weeks ago. And so I'm stepping in his stead, and I want to acknowledge the phenomenal leadership and vision that he brought to us 12 years ago at the outset of the CSAC Institute. He was the original vision of it. He made it real and evolved it from one course to nearly 90, and from one location to 5 physical locations, and now in this, or more recently in this virtual world. He was a truly remarkable individual dean and leader, and I had the great opportunity to work with him in a number of different capacities. I served as faculty with him as the dean for the Institute. I was a student going through some courses with him, and then served as a colleague of his for a number of years. Just a truly remarkable person, both professionally and personally. So I'd like to begin today's course by observing a moment of silence to honor Bill Shiat, our prior dean. Thank you. Well, there's certainly been a monumental amount of change over the course of the last several months. And that's our Institute has not been spared from that as we have transitioned to this more virtual platform. I want to thank you all for your patience as we have moved through that. I want to thank Chastity Benson, who's the program manager for our foundation, which oversees the Institute, who's been the leader and workhorse to make it happen and to keep us steady and moving forward in a way that is responsive to the needs of county leaders. So thanks to Chastity and the team for the work that they've done around that. Institute registration will open in the next couple of weeks for our fall set of courses. We will be beginning in September, so please look for that email from us here in the relatively near future. You're in good stead today, this afternoon, because you'll be have 2 incredible guides in Dr. Laree Kiely and Dr. Rich Callahan, 2 of our core instructors that have been with us for a number of years and excel at leadership at high performance organizations and individuals, and at negotiation, and really about being grounded and being your authentic self. And so you're in very good hands today in a course that couldn't be more timely, beyond survival and being human, perhaps no more relevant than several months into a COVID-19 pandemic, a fiscal crisis, and one in which all of our lives in our both personal and from our work perspective have been kind of turned upside down. So this course will assist with that. And Dr. Kiely and Dr. Callahan are remarkable leaders and part of our faculty to help lead through that. And so I'm going to turn it over to Rich to kick this off. Please have a great course.
Graham, thank you very much. Thank you for the kind introduction of Laree and myself, and the powerful remembrance of all that Bill brought to the program in setting this up. And when we first talked 12 years ago, he said, well, I'll start in Sacramento and grow statewide. And I kind of said, oh, Bill, I don't know about that. And now it's statewide and virtual, and really had, and I'll start with, Laree and I really admired his great commitment to this institute and to the work of county government, and to each of you who work in a specific county, Bill had that commitment and he looked for faculty, and he always stood by that commitment all the years that we've taught. And so Laree and I have worked together for over 20 years, starting with a program for Sierra Health Foundation. And so we've been glad to work together, and this gives us an opportunity. Ourselves and other faculty this summer volunteered our time to offer these 1 hour or hour and 15-minute seminars to be supportive. And Bill was the vision of doing that, and his staff, Chastity and Olvia and Liz, were remarkable in carrying that forward with the loss of Bill. And so we draw, as we present today, we draw on what we find in the research to be the best practices in our own work. Laree and I, in consulting and with people who have been remarkable leaders, we draw on that experience as well as drawing on what the best practices. And our goal today is really to support your work. And so, and we'll go back and forth, Laree and I. In terms of what we've designed for this program as learning outcomes, really to think about leverage points for survival and beyond. And so we've organized it around some ideas that we'll put on the table. Both Laree and I are very committed to your work. And so we cover a wide range of topics today. One of the goals is to put on the table ideas and invitation to think about different approaches or to add to your toolkit. Another is there's a wide range of participants. There's over 60 participants today. So that calls for a wide range of ideas. People are at different points of their career, different agencies, different departments and programs. And so we want to try to offer something to each of the participants. And in an hour, we won't go into great depth, but both Laree and I are glad to follow up and volunteer our time either individually with individuals, or if there's a group, that there's something that we talked about that you would like us to really drill down into and talk about more. So we will address survival and beyond by talking about how to address fear and an anti-fragile approach. We'll talk about survival best practices and then examples beyond that. A way of connecting with each other through core values as a way to move forward. And then some additional tools to add to your toolkit as you move forward. So we'll try to keep the pace of this moving. We'll have a breakout session where you can connect with each other. And that was one of the great designs that Bill thought about for this program, was bringing people together in the same county, but across different departments and different programs. And so we touch on that a little bit through having a breakout session with this. So with that, we just wanted to get a sense of where things are at. So I'll turn things over to Laree and we'll do a poll, and Laree will go through some aspects and then I'll reconnect with you. And it's great to be here with you.
Thanks, Rich. So Olvia, you've got our poll there. This is what the poll looks like, and Olvia is putting that up right now. And you can answer more than one of these if you like, perfectly okay. And also know that your answers are completely anonymous. We don't know who's saying what, but we want to kind of put our finger on the pulse here and see how you're doing. So go ahead and answer this. You can answer more than one. Now, are you struggling with the emotions, loss, change, grief, sadness, anger? You know, in multiple choice, you can select all that apply, like yes, very much, a little, no, not really. I've learned how to effectively manage these things over the years. So I came into this able to manage them. Also, I try to deny them so I can function. Another one is I'm really good at toughing it out. Another one is I would like some more information and tools about all of this. It's certainly not something most people have been through. There's one thing about a crisis or something unusual that can happen, but the sustainability of this one and the fact that we don't know what the outcomes are going to be or when they might be, or and how long it's going to sustain itself. So there we go. Thanks, Olvia. You did a good job. Let's see. So the highest number of votes here is you're feeling a little bit of this at least. And then second highest is learned how to manage them over the years. We're going to talk about that as we get deeper into this. But it looks to me like, of course, we're being human and really good at toughing it out, like some more information. So we're in good shape. So I think we're all in the right place to talk about this. And hopefully we brought some materials that can be really helpful to you all. So as we start that, the first step I want to talk about is, first of all, we have to get a handle on fear. You know, we can't just make it go away. We actually have to face it head on. If we're feeling fearful, either moment by moment or just kind of a generic kind of feeling generally in our bodies that we're feeling fearful, we can't just make it go away. One of my favorite quotes from Pema Chodron, who's a Tibetan nun, said one time that nobody ever tells us to stop running away from fear. The advice we usually get is to sweeten it up or smooth it over or take a pill or distract ourselves, but by all means make it go away. That's not really the right approach, because ultimately it takes a toll on us anyway. If you take a look at the most basic of neuroscience pieces of information here, incoming information and how we respond to the environment. First of all, incoming information goes straight to the primitive part of our brain, and it looks for threat because it was one of the original parts of our brain. If you believe in evolution or don't believe in evolution, we're pretty sure that the front part, the prefrontal cortex of our brain, came later. But this part, the limbic system and the amygdala, were there from the very beginning of humanoids, and it made perfect sense to have that as how our brain worked. It was looking constantly for threat. It was looking for these guys, saber-toothed tigers. Are they hiding behind the bushes so that we can make sure that we survive? But if we have no mental discipline at this stage in human history, if we haven't made our brains our friend, that threat coming in becomes fear. And we have only three choices: fight, flight, or freeze. Take a look at this and think about, how do you respond to fear? Take a look at the people who are working around you. If you're interacting with folks, how are they responding to fear? If you notice them feeling sort of angry, that's the fight response. If you notice them just saying, just get me out of this, just get me out of this, this is the flight response. And then there's the freeze response, where people are sort of bouncing off the wall saying, what do I do now? Somebody just tell me what to do. We have to be able to build a relationship with this prefrontal cortex, the executive function, which is in the front part of our brains. If we don't build a relationship with that, it won't show up. So we have to intentionally invite the executive function into the party, otherwise it'll get stuck at the door. So make sure you build friendship with that anytime that you're feeling fight, flight, or freeze. So that's kind of the way the brain works in a much more primitive sense. It's way more complicated than all of that. But one of the folks who's doing some interesting research on actually more resilience and readiness is a fellow named Nassim Taleb. And Nassim has written a book called Antifragile. And his literature is so interesting and his research is so interesting. He's finding out that some things actually gain from disorder and some things actually strengthen or get better because of disorder. So he says, in fact, unlike fragile items which break when they're put under stress, anti-fragile items, and I dare say also humans, actually can benefit from volatility and shock. Some people are really good under these conditions. And if you believe in evolution, or if you think Darwin was either a metaphor or a fact, it doesn't matter. What he didn't say was survival of the best. He didn't say survival of the fittest, which is how everybody interpreted it. He said actually survival of the best fit. And what he meant by that was it's about adaptation. It's not about being the biggest, baddest, meanest bully on the block. It's about, can we adapt? And he also found that shocks and stressors strengthen anti-fragile systems sometimes by forcing them to build up extra capacity. For example, one of the things that I'm involved in is a really fantastic study right now about flipping the study of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and flipping it on its head. What other people are now starting to study, and I'm involved in this incredible research around studying people who are actually post-traumatic stress growth. They become stronger and better as a result of the trauma. And it doesn't mean they didn't need help. It doesn't mean that they didn't come out of it a bit fragile, but it ultimately made them stronger human beings. And studying that has given us a lot of information about the anti-fragiles, as it were. Some of the great news about the studies on post-traumatic growth. First of all, they're finding that traumatic events can actually have, for some people, for some organizations, beneficial effects. We also found that people who have grown from the trauma and actually sorted it out in their minds and put it in perspective, find that they're feeling more appreciative of their lives, of just being alive, and sensing a new inner strength and confidence because they're paying attention to getting stronger rather than more fragile. Also finding out that relationships become more intimate and authentic and important to people who are anti-fragile. It also finds that people find a new sense of meaning and purpose in their lives as a result of trauma, and a deeper level of awareness and a dramatic transformation. That's this fellow leaping from one place to another, because as a result of trauma, for some folks, it shifts our identity. It's like a quantum leap from who we were to who we became as a result of the trauma. And depending on what's going on in your life and your work, heaven only knows, everybody's responding to it differently. Everybody's getting some effect by this, others more affected than some. Others have family members affected by this. So whatever you're experiencing right now is unique to you, but you also need to pay attention to how are you really responding to it. And we'll talk some more about some tools for this. As I hand this back to Rich, who is going to tell you some wonderful stuff about survival tactics from another set of sources. So Rich, I hand this back to you.
I'm going to talk about some research, in-depth research out there, and then some experiences. And then we're going to do a breakout session where you get to talk to each other and just share an insight from your experience for about 5 or 6 minutes of your work situation. And essentially what my approach is to crosswalk research from other contexts and see what might be helpful to you in your work context. So there was a stunning book by the former associate editor of National Geographic, of Outside Magazine, Laurence Gonzeles, and he called it Deep Survival. And he looked at when people were put in very unexpected situations. And his saying is, life comes at you unexpectedly. And these were very dramatic situations, plane crashes or getting lost in the mountains. And he found a set of themes, and I've picked up a few of them. And the first one that really jumps out about it is what he calls bending the map. Time and time again, when someone was in an unexpected situation, what they would literally do is look at the landmarks and try to fit it to where they thought they should be. That they would bend the contours of the map. And his insight is that being lost is not a location, but it's a state of mind. Jim Collins, in his research on good to great, he puts it another way. He says, the move from good to great depends on candid conversation about what are the facts of the situation, or Jim Collins says the brutal facts. So the first best practice is really getting a grip on that things are different and where are we at today. The second piece that Laurence Gonzeles finds is survival is a combination of being bold, but at the same time being humble. And humble in the sense of the ancient story from Confucius of when a new student goes to him and says, I'd like to learn from you, teacher. And Confucius is pouring the tea from a kettle and the cup is overflowing. And the student says, the prospective students, well, the cup is overflowing. You should stop pouring the tea. And Confucius says, that's you. I can't teach you anything until you empty your cup. And so the best phrase that I can come up with in terms of the work situation is an open-mindedness, which is again a finding in Jim Collins from good to great. Number 3, there's a shift in the state of mind from the fear of the unknown and the fear of the ambiguity and the uncertainty to a focus. What are the next steps that need to be done? There's an additional shift for number 4 in terms of best practices. And I'll tell a little story on this subsequently, but it's helping others. If you're in a situation where you can shift the focus from yourself to helping others, that's been a proven successful survival tactic. And then the last 2 are ones that I think you'll, at least the first one, small manageable wins, and celebrate them. And that's very consistent with the organizational research that you find from Carl Weick and others. When you achieve something, celebrate it. And the sixth one is it's a longer story. I won't go into great detail, but he says, don't turn around and see where you've been. Keep track of, and whether it's in one group he studied of a native society that wasn't very technologically advanced, they would tell songs about where they traveled that had the landmarks. So turn around, share with people you're working with where you've been as you move forward. I'll shift to some insights that I've gotten over the years of people I've worked with, and they're more individual stories. And then I'll ask you in your small group just to share a short story. So each one of these could literally be a book in itself. The first one I'll tell you is a book, and but I'll just give a short thumbnail sketch. Joe Walters was a U.S. Army veteran who lost his leg in the Vietnam War. His brother was a national champion in judo, and Joe Walters wanted to came back to the United States and wanted to compete in judo with one leg. I asked him one day, we were both from the Philadelphia area. We were working out one day. He was about 10 years old, 15 years older than me. He's in great shape. I said, Joe, how much swimming do you do to get in such great shape? Because you're obviously not running. He looks at me and goes, swimming? I don't like to swim. He goes, I throw a rock. I throw it as far as I can, and then I hop to it. And I do that back and forth in my backyard. Well, his cardiovascular conditioning led him to become a national champion for the age group over 35 years old. So the first thing is, if conventional training won't work, figure out what your equivalent of throwing a rock. The second quick story is Connie Rice. She's a civil rights attorney in Los Angeles. She had serious concerns in with how LAPD's use of force. And she took those concerns and litigated again and again and again to get LAPD to change their policies. And she finally said, I finally knew I was making inroads and getting a change in the mindset when they put a parking spot for me at what was then Parker Center, the headquarters. She said, I knew they were willing to listen when they gave me a parking spot. Again, it's a longer story. She's quite an extraordinary attorney and in Los Angeles. The third one's from my mom, Barbara Callahan. Most people won't say this, but I'll say it with love and affection. My mom wasn't a great cook. My mom was a great writer. She wrote and was published in Mystery Stories and Ellery Queen Mystery Magazine. And she made fine dinners for myself and my three brothers and sisters. But one time when I was visiting from California, she lived in New Jersey. She said, Richard, can you give me a ride down to the soup kitchen at the church down in Camden? I bake a casserole for them every week. And I looked at her and I said, and she laughed after I said this. I said, haven't they suffered enough? You're making a casserole for them? She laughed, but it was really the idea. She was always thinking of others. And so as you think about the challenges you face, how do you think of others? And time again, as with all our mothers, we can think of stories of how they sacrifice for others. And the last one is from Leron Lee. And he was a professional baseball player in the United States. And he had an okay career. He batted 300 one year, and he played for 9 years professionally in the United States in the major leagues, 8 years in major leagues. But then things weren't working out. And in his career, while he was still relatively young, 28, he went to Japan. And it was a challenge. He's an African-American baseball player in Japan. And he said, when I went to Japan, I learned how to hit. He said, I learned that you have to swing to find your swing. And you just keep at it. And Leron became a perennial all-star, led the league in home runs and batting average. And when he left Japan, he had the highest lifetime batting average. So each of these is a story of going from beyond survival, not just playing in Japan, but being the dominant hitter of his era, not just litigating, but really getting an organization to listen. So what I'd like to ask you to do is, Olvia, if you can help with this, is to break out in small groups for the next, shall we say, 6 minutes. And so it's just a short story of what's been the most effective practice for you over the last 4 or 5 months as your county has shifted in response to COVID. And this deserves much more time. We could, if we were meeting all day long and one of the sessions that starts in September, we'd have a much longer breakout. But just want to give you a chance to introduce yourself to each other and just say a best practice. As people come back, I'll comment on 2 things. One is, if you felt like I want more time to talk to people, that's my metric of success. So, you know, we're only meeting for a little over an hour, and so we don't give this the time it deserves. The other piece, and this speaks to the full institute, is one of the great insights that Bill Chad had was the importance of allowing you to network across different departments and programs, as I mentioned. And this is a sense of doing that. And our hope is that whoever you connect with, if you're interested, you'll follow up into the future. So going back to shift, and then we'll do another little breakout as well. I want to shift to another way to think about connecting with people. And I do a longer session on this, but it's really about connecting with people about what they care about. We'll use the term core value for what you care about deeply. And so I have a short, it's a 2-minute video. It's not from county government. I deliberately pick it so that it's across, it's not one department or one agency. If you want a quite effective, it's not a video, it's an hour-long documentary on a career that's rather inspirational of a 20-year supervisor, Ed Edelman. Shoot me an email and I'll send you the link. It's been on PBS in LA. It's a much longer county-specific example, but this is 2 minutes. And there might be a little bar at the bottom. Don't worry about it. There's some written text at the beginning. Then we're going to come back. I'll talk briefly about core values, and then I'll ask you to go into breakout groups and share a core value story from your experience.
Oops, here it comes. There's no sound on this just yet.
She missed the base.
That's the first home run of the season for number 8, Sarah Tukolsky.
Thank you, Laree.
You're welcome.
When I saw this video for the first time, it just stunned me, and I'd heard about it, and what it gives us a chance to really think about. And it's one of the ways we find out what people care deeply about is through stories. And so what I'd like you to do, and again, ask for Ovia's help on this, is we'll break out into a small group and just see what core values you see in that video for yourself. And we'll do a breakout room for 6 minutes. And well, let's make it 5 minutes. I'm trying to move things along. And again, there'll be a sense of, I wish we had more time on this, and that's fine. It's just an invitation to think about it and to see how core values can come out in the stories that we tell. On this, I'll finish up and then hand things over to Laree on this. And welcome any questions on chat or, Debbie, thank you for posting that. Group 7, empathy, trust, teamwork, respect, integrity, virtuous, very, very powerful, very powerful. The Latin root of the word integrity is very powerful root. It means to make whole. And those 2 women who pick up the player who tears her ligaments, they literally make her whole, dropping down each time. And Laree and I were talking about the mindset they had to figure that out. So thank you for posting that. I see most people are back. So what I'm going to do is not as an exercise for this class, because I want you to have some more time to be able to work through some tools that Laree's going to talk about, but something to think about as you do your work is who's been a model for you for core value driven leadership. When's been an opportunity that you've had? And then is there a future opportunity? So that's something to think about for the future and for you. And what I'd like to wrap up on is just thinking about connecting for the future. If you're looking for other really powerful core value driven stories, I have 2 here. And then I'll add a third. The founder of Run DMC, who describes himself as basically the founder of hip hop, Darryl McDaniels, has a very moving story podcast called The Moth. It's on The Moth, but it's called Angel, Everything Happens for a Reason. It's not an easy podcast because he talks about his wrestling with suicide, but it's a very, very powerful set of stories that he tells. And then just a video I saw that was one time posted by Paul Krugman, the Nobel laureate economist. He did a link to a band, Del McCoury. It's a bluegrass band. And something to think about as you think about core values and beyond survival is the idea of we all need a little help from our friends. And so this is another take. The third one for you to think about, you might think about the idea of grit. And there's a wonderful TED Talk and then subsequent book by Angela Duckworth. And if you Google grit and Angela Duckworth, it'll come up absolutely. And for any of you on all the slides, and we'll share the slides, please feel free to follow up with Laree or myself for any connection we mentioned that you'd like to go into more depth, or even if it's just a web link. So with that, I want to, I'll turn things over to Laree and look forward for her discussion on adding some more tools to the Beyond Survival toolbox and being human. So thank you, Laree.
You're welcome. Thank you, Rich. Very, very nice. Really great stories and inspirational stories of people thinking fast on their feet and thinking of others and so on. You've got a couple of chats here that I will tell you about. For example, Frank also is one of the faculty, and he's going to do a course sometime in the fall for you. So I just want you to keep an eye out for Frank. But he said in the chat, he says the game was more important than the competition, and game equals community. And that's really nice, Frank. That's really, really nice. I agree with that. And Bob said group 1 had empathy, generosity, innovation, the right thing to do. I want to talk to you, Bob, about the innovation piece. I agree. Those people thought very quickly on their feet about what to do with this young woman, and all of the restrictions that they had and how quickly they figured out a solution was amazing. And said, you know, that was the right thing to do, and selflessness and rigidity of umpires and rules and laws. And he said he lost what he was talking when he switched back to the group, but he may have forgotten a few. But these are really good ones. This is exactly what we're talking about. And Melody, to you, we will share these slides. As far as I know, I believe you can get these from Olivia and Liz. I believe that's probably true. And so we'll check on that, but I think that's pretty standard for what we're going to do. So if I think about the next piece, let me take a little time just to add a couple of tools to your toolkit, because we've had you think about it, fairly brief conversations you had, but you know, thinking about how do you find your own inner strength? How can you share your best practices with people? Because I doubt that anybody can be an adult these days without having gone through some kind of traumatic event in their lives or around them. So let me add a couple more tools to your toolkit as you go forth into this unknown. The first one, and the quickest and easiest and free tool I know. Believe me, it sounds smarmy, it sounds silly, it sounds lightweight, but it is probably the most important tool you can ever have. If you're feeling anxiety, if you're feeling fear, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling just tired of all of this, and it will happen, the quickest and easiest and free tool I know is a little tool called gratitude. Believe it or not, you're feeling kind of icky about anything. All you have to do, and this is neuroscience, it's not even psychology, it's neuroscience. All you have to do is just think, what are you grateful for? And it completely shifts the way your brain is working. You have what is called neuroplasticity. You have control over how you're feeling by controlling what the brain is doing. And it fires a totally different set of synapses if you think about gratitude. It also reduces the icky chemical in your system that fear kicks in called cortisol. It's amazing how quickly this can actually shift you. Think about things you're grateful for. Makes a huge difference. The second tool I wanted to share with you is what's called thought stopping. Another thing out of neuroscience, cognitive-based tools. This is very powerful also. Just think about something that calms you. So anything, anywhere, something that calms you. And think one or two words. For me, it's trees. My dad was a forester. He was a big tree fan. I love trees. They give me tremendous amount of peace and strength and perspective. So for me, the one or two words about something that calms me and gives me peace is tree. I've got another friend, my buddy CJ uses the word taco because tacos calm him and gives him peace. Whatever makes you happy and makes you feel good. Then you say that word or those two words 7 times. It has to be 7 times. There's something really interesting about neuroscience. And 7. If it's 5, it won't change the synapse that's firing. If it's 8 or 9, you'll actually go back to feeling the fear. But 1 or 2 words, say them 7 times. If that doesn't stop the thought, ooh, there's a typo in there. That doesn't stop the thought, then say it again 7 times. If it still doesn't stop the thought, say it again 7 times. Personal testimony, my husband is a musician and he traveled by airplane for many, many, many years. And for some odd reason, he started getting claustrophobic in airplanes, just out of the blue. And if any of you have ever experienced a phobic reaction to things, you'll realize that it's really hard to get out of that. It's not that he's afraid of airplanes, he was actually afraid of becoming claustrophobic, so we become afraid of the fear. And then it starts spinning out of control. I gave him this tool and now he uses it every time he's on an airplane and it works great and he can avoid that phobic reaction. So tree, 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 and try that. Promise you, if you start feeling scared, anxious, overwhelmed or anything, that's an old brain synapse that is firing and this gives you a new place for your synapse to fire and it will also reduce the cortisol in your system. And this also tool that I want to share with you is this wonderful tool called Be Here Now. If any of you remember Ram Dass, who passed away just several months ago, he wrote a book called Be Here Now. And it's really about watch out for worry. Don't spend all of your time in the past mentally or in the future mentally. Spend some of your time in the present. And if you're spending the time in the present worrying about what's going to happen, you may have noticed that worry does not change things. Worry doesn't keep stuff from happening, but it does spoil the present moment. So like right now, present moment's pretty good. We're sitting together in this wonderful community brought together by Bill and brought together by CSAC and enjoying each other's company and so on and sharing some tools with each other. That's a good present moment. Be here in this moment. Now, there are some things you'll be concerned about, but worrying about them perpetually doesn't solve anything. So figure out what you're worried about. Prepare what you will do if your worry actually happens. Write it down, put it down, and move on and let it go until it's time to act. Spending a lot of time worrying does not change the outcome. It just spoils the present moment. And then you can use your thought stopping technique also. The fourth tool, and as simple as these are, and they're free, you don't need a therapist for this stuff. In fact, this stuff is replacing therapy in many ways because you can do this yourself for free, There's of course, the old wonderful serenity prayer called "Grant me the serenity, to control the things I can," and so on. If you understand, if it feels overwhelming and you're thinking, "My gosh, this is just overwhelming," and it will on occasion, depending on how you're responding, what's going on in your own personal life, make a list of everything that's irritating you or concerning you. Make a list of everything, big and small, right? I'm very worried about my husband who has a seriously compromised immune system. I'm also worried about my dog getting her hair cut because she's getting too fuzzy in the heat. And I mean, make a list of everything. Put an N beside the issues where you have absolutely no control. Put an S beside the issues where you have some control and determine what control you have. And put a C beside the issues that you do have the most control over. Then you're going to stop feeling so overwhelmed and realize you have more control than you think, and don't spend a lot of time worrying about the things where you have no control. So those are sort of my tools I wanted to give you. These are the simplest, they're free, and you can do them as yourselves. All they take is a little discipline and, a little practice. So let's see, we've got a couple of things in the chat room here. So Rich has given you the Angela Duckworth TED Talk, which is very worth listening to. Tim says the email sent has the downloadable slides. Thank you, Tim. Very good. Thanks for being on top of that. Really appreciate that. And let's see here. Also, Frank. Oh, then also Frank noted my comparison to the community as a powerful insight, Rich says, Frank, and it definitely is. The game and community is much more important than the competition. Absolutely true. And in the end result, that's really what matters anyway, because, a game will be over. So those are the things, the tools, the perspective we wanted to share with you. When you're having a rough time or anybody around you is having a rough time, share these with folks so that they can learn from yours. Now, I actually found this really cute little garden thing that I bought online that came with this incredible quote by Audrey Hepburn, who said, "To plant a garden is to believe in tomorrow." What an incredible quote. I mean, you wouldn't plant a garden if you didn't think tomorrow was going to happen, right? So what a beautiful quote, and what a wonderful thing for this space that we're in right now between the no longer and the not yet. So my question to you as we sort of tie a bow on all of this is, what seeds will you plant? Literally or figuratively, what seeds do you want to plant around you so that healthy things can grow, and that you can be planting these seeds also for the people around you who may be having a harder time than you are, or just on that particular day. So, to plant a garden is really to believe in tomorrow. So plant some seeds and make them healthy and make sure that they're good for you as well. So Rich has asked if we could have you just type some answers in here in the chat room, or you can also put these answers in the review, because we're going to get an evaluation that comes out to you. We'd like to know what you think, because this always helps us. It's all new for all of us. So help us out, make sure that we are helping us as we go forward with these online programs. But just in the chat room, if you've got some time you want to chat with us, just what do you hope to carry forward from today? And if today's presentation worked well for you, let us know that. And what future adjustments would you like us to make in these presentations, so that as we get into the fall and they're a little more stable and there'll be a catalog of courses that you'll be getting and everything else, what would you like all of us, all of the faculty, to do around doing these virtual programs? Anything that you can chat with us about would be really helpful. I'm going to go take a look at the chat room here. Jill says, Jill says she's going to, the seeds you're going to plant, Jill, are going to be positivity. Excellent, 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 excellent. Angela says she appreciated the values conversation in the video. Anybody else want to chat in here and add anything that you'd like, just as we tie a bow on this? Maria says the tools were good. Excellent. Love the questions. What seeds will you plant? Very good. And also keep in mind that you will get an eval. So fill out the eval for us. It'll help us more in the fall when we get into the catalog courses. Debbie says, let's see, I'm missing a couple. They're scooting by here so fast. This is great. Thank you. Maria says the tools are good. Love the questions. What seed will you plant? Debbie says great information. It was a good length for the subject. The breakouts are okay for the subject as well. This is good help for us. We all had a chance to talk. Good. That worked very well. You facilitated that well. Joel says, celebrating the ability to be calm and centered while in the middle of the hurricane. That's it, Joel. That's it exactly. Susan says, we'll focus on being present and enjoying the now more. Yeah. And Ryan says, ask staff to create the serenity list to help with the things that they feel like they're overwhelmed by. That's a really good idea. Help that with your staff. And it's been a rough several months. I know it has, my friends, and we don't know how long it's going to last. So we have to be taking care of each other and carrying each other around to the bases here. Teresa says to focus more on being in the present. Frank says he liked the polling question to launch the webinar and like the breakout rooms and the use of the video, that it was well paced, but give us criticism too, because we want to make sure that in the fall classes, we make sure we make the improvements. Let's see, tell staff, Rita says, tell staff that they've been role models for helping you. Excellent. As an elected, true, that's right, Marita, and as an elected, tell them that. Appreciate what people are doing, it's good. Staying focused in the present, love the breakout sessions, good. Jay says being anti-fragile, great presentation, appreciate the bit. This is, thank you very much. You're all very complimentary, which we appreciate. We take criticism too. You'll be getting a catalog for the fall courses that will be longer and more organized and so on. But let us know in the evals what you think would be really, really good. Teresa says, we'd like a screenshot of the video intro of the words. You know what, on that, Teresa, on that video, you can look that up on YouTube. And if you want, we can get you that screenshot. But on the other hand, you can look it up on YouTube. And Rich, what is it? What's the title of it if they look it up on YouTube?
I think it just pops up under softball players, or it used to. I'll post the, I'll see if I can find the link to that. And,
Okay.
and Teresa, you'll see at the end of our presentation the email for Laree and myself. And if you shoot me an email, I'll be glad to take a screenshot for that and send it to you if that's helpful.
And thank you all very, very, very much. Oh, we've got some more chats coming in. Let's see what we've got coming in here. So Lawrence says, like the reminder that worry doesn't change things, but ruins the present moment. Let it go till it's time to act. And Tim says, felt a bit rushed. I know it actually does. And Tim, these fall courses are going to be longer than just an hour, but you like the content. And thank you very much. We sure care about you and want to be as helpful as we can be, because we know it's been bumpy and we don't know how long it's going to last. So let us help. And here is also, we wanted to say thank you to you. Not just thank you for being here with us, but thank you to you for all of the really important work that you're doing. It matters very much. You're the infrastructure of people's lives, and we need you. So stay safe and sane. And here is our information if you want to reach us by email or by phone. We would love to respond to anything you need for yourself or for the people around you. We're happy to do that. I've got to cover 2 more chats and then I'll hand it to Rich to actually tie a bow on this. Olvia says, thank you for participating to everybody. Bob says, I think I might do too well in the midst of chaos. Bob, that just means, my friend, that you're an anti-fragile. Tell people how you're doing it. They can learn from you. So Rich, I hand this back to you. Rich, it's a delight doing this with you. So thank you very much for your partnership.
It's been a blessing to be able to work with you this summer to offer these ideas for folks. I agree with the observation, Tim, that we're rushed because we genuinely are committed to presenting as much as we possibly can, and appreciate your patience and working through this as we cover a lot. And I know I speak on behalf of Laree and all of us. We greatly admire and appreciate your work and the impact that you have in the community, and to be able to contribute to that through these seminars or through the work in the fall semester with faculty. I see another faculty member, Frank Benist, is on here, and the other ones we've mentioned. And I know I'm scheduled to teach in the fall, and Laree and I are absolutely committed. If there's anybody individually that you want us to follow up, we'll volunteer our time and glad to help you and share our appreciation for all that you do and for the impact you have with the community. So thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody. Be safe and sane.